for instance, who say no birth control. I just let me mention. It's okay. Don't worry. Who will say, no, but this is a safe space, no? Look at, yeah. The Catholics, and I have nothing against Catholics, I'm just saying, in terms of their beliefs, we're talking, they say no birth control. But look at the problems. Look at the problems that we are likely to encounter, given climate change, given this crazy population. When people say this thing about 400 million, it's like my head is about to burst. Because I'm thinking, where? In Lagos, on the streets, sometimes you cannot even move. Where are we going to fit all these people in, and how are we going to feed ourselves? So definitely, at some point, we're going to have to say, okay, I believe this, I believe this, I believe this, but do we need to rethink our beliefs? Do we need to rethink the way that we lead our lives? And this is northern Nigeria, and I appreciate that. But I also know that within this same space, it's not just Muslims who live here. And that's the truth. You have large populations of Christians. You have large populations of people who practice traditional religions. I don't understand, given what all these books say, these holy books, about how we should be tolerant, about how religion is not something you force on the next person. Why is it that we cannot be more open-minded? Why is it that we have to, this religion that's inside us, sometimes drives us to behave negatively? I think the problem is with us. And the problem is with the way we interpret those religions. Because as you're seeing me, I'll tell you one truth. This is a safe space. I am absolutely non-religious. Half of my family are Muslims. The other half are Christians. I said I'm non-religious. Can't you speak English again? What I'm trying to say here is that to be there watching them kill the ram because I want to eat it. When it is Christmas, my Muslim cousins they're at my gates, waiting for the aroma of jollof rice. We love each other. Religion does not divide us. If anything, it brings us together. I go to the mosque regularly. Anytime and in my own village, they are forever giving themselves titles in the mosque. Iya Dini of this one, Baba Dini. When they call us, hey, title, okay. Is there Ashwebi? Do you know what Ashwebi is? I will ask. If there is, we're all going there together. My mom will now be saying, if it's church, I invite you now, you won't follow me. You are I say, but sometimes the food they serve after is tastier. You know? But this is just to say that this is an important panel. When I looked at some of the comments on Facebook, I have to admit to you that I was a little bit disappointed. I was disappointed because your potential to be an extremist starts from the point at which you are incapable of opening your mind to other people's ideas. I fear more than anything people who are afraid of change and people who cannot listen to others because they are intolerant, they are dangerous, and it takes a tiny thing for them to become violent. And that's the truth. So please, open minds. We listen to what people have to say. We respect them. And this is a what? Exactly. Thank you. I'm sorry that I was preaching a bit there, but I just, my response is actually to those people writing those Facebook posts. I hope you are watching on the live stream. All right, so for Live and Let Live, I'm going to invite the host, my friend, my brother, Mr. Kola Tubosun. And on this panel, we have Dr. Freedom Onuoha, he has written the most brilliant essay. This is what brought us together. He's been with us at Ake Festival. The most brilliant essay I've read on Boko Haram was actually written by Freedom Onuoha, who is an Igbo man, but he has studied Boko Haram. This is how we learn from one another. Please give him a round of applause. I would also like to invite Professor Abubakar Othman. Where is he? We heard from him yesterday. Thank you, sir. And last but not least, my dear, dear friend that I've had reason to communicate with a lot recently, and I've learned to respect his opinions. Please welcome Mr. Mubarak Bala. Can we test your mics, please? Please say hello. Nope.
Hello? I think mine is good.
On the panel. Hopefully we have interactive comments from women as well as we go along. I'm fascinated by the topic, especially because of what we know about Nigeria and our situation. Religious things crop up all the time. But I'm taking a different, similar but different attitude to the topic. So I'm not going to focus only on northern Nigeria, but Nigeria as a whole, because this is a problem that exists all around the country. So let me just start by asking you guys to tell me what does religious freedom mean to you personally, and then we'll take it from there.
Hello. Should I start?
Yeah, please.
Okay, my name is Mubarak. The commotion was about me. Yes. So religious freedom, to me, well, is a general definition that people should have the right to choose as adults what they want to do with their lives. Believing or not believing in what people thought. Already the religions are ancient, so there is hardly any new religion. So religious freedom means to choose what others have already thought for you and have decided on all matters of your life, and that you have to just accept it as a fact and live it within yourself, within a family, and then within the society. So to me, I thought I have to be free, not just within myself, but also physically among the society. So I don't see, I'm also an advocate of freedom of religion, not only freedom from religion. So if somebody wants to convert to Islam, I would be very happy for him or her. And if somebody wants to leave the religion, any religion, I would also be an advocate to defend their freedoms and their choices. So religious freedom in this region is virtually not discussed. And I don't want to scare you, that's why I didn't tell you in time. But I am used to it already, many years. There were threats before, but gradually things have subsided. And they were like, they were saying, okay, close by. They were saying I'm not qualified to speak about these topics, and that they are disappointed with the organization. Qualified me to be here to them is that I have a curse placed on me by the leader of Boko Haram in a video. He cursed me. He was very angry with me. And he blamed the society for leaving people like us to be free. He couldn't reach me, but his threats really living up to his expectation. They are threatening that I should die for something I chosen to be quiet about my beliefs. But I came out when Boko Haram was really, really violent and killing people. So I thought, if I could share my opinion, my personal opinions to the people, maybe I could stop a few things. One, recruitment. My understanding is that these people want to kill themselves to make heaven. It's a fundamental belief from my former religion that you can sacrifice yourself. As long as there is this sacrifice, then the world will be a better place and you can achieve a lot with this. But I am a student of science and philosophy, so I realized that the strong belief they had almost led them to delusion that they would live after they die. And I understood that before we were born, we don't exist. The universe existed without us. We never felt any pain. We never felt any fear. We never felt any joy for billions of years before we existed. Now somebody wants to die for a promise of a life after they die. And if you could reverse that experience from before being born, you can't feel anything. You can't feel anything. So if I could tell people that after you die, you're going back to the same state you were before you were born, maybe the terrorists will be deterred in some way, that they don't have to kill people. I came out to my parents first. I then came up to my friends, and I told other people. Even as they're angry, they're always angry on Facebook. They're always angry online. But I thought when we can actually have a safe space, even online, to discuss these things, at least it's a progress, it's an improvement from just allowing, like, we have issues to discuss. Anybody can discuss corruption, anybody can discuss politics, anybody can discuss anything, but you can't discuss religion, and you can't discuss philosophy. They are very, very afraid of it. And it's a blackmail from mostly the religion. You open radio, the clerics will always be threatening you that whatever you do, God is watching you. And he has a fire that he keeps for people like you. So if people are already under the blackmail that from childhood, you may be secular around here, you may be secular, but you also have children that you send to schools. It's called Islamia schools, where the teachers you know are not secular. They are mostly fundamentalists. So they frighten you that there is someone waiting for you when you die and accounting for anything. So you're not actually asked to be good, but you're frightened that you have to be good. And you're not just being frightened to be just good, but to be obedient as well to whatever command you receive. It's called asam wa ta'a, that whatever they told you, you have to just obey. And this is why a leader, a terrorist leader like Abubakar Shekau could command anybody to go and kill people, and they would. You don't have to question anything. So, in essence, I want to be good. I call myself a humanist. But how do I want to be good? Do I need a threat of hellfire or a torment when I'm dead? Actually, I know I won't feel anything, but do I need those threats before I could be good? So people can be good by themselves, and they can also be good by threat. But the problem with that other good by threat is that you can actually be asked to do wrong, and they call it good. This is why they are killing people. So my advocacy is always freedom of religion, social justice, and also freedom of speech and secularism, so that at least we can end Boko Haram with this generation, because we've seen Somalia, we've seen Afghanistan, we know where they are headed, we know what they went through, and we don't want to go that far. It's a brink. We don't want to go that far. We have seen the horrors, we have seen the worst, and we hope it's almost over.
All right, thank you so much. For those not familiar with his story, I'm going to give him a chance to talk about it much later. He declared that he was no longer a Muslim, that he was an atheist, and he was institutionalized because they said you had to go through this psychological evaluation and a number of things to prove that you're not insane. You will talk more about that. So I want to know, from your own perspective, you're from a different part of the country. And usually when we think of the stifling of religious freedom, typically the first thing we think about is in northern Nigeria and in Islam. But is it the case that it's the only place in the country where religious freedom is not tolerated, or are there other instances that you have paid attention to in your career?
Okay, first of all, let me thank the organizers for inviting me. When I saw the panel I was to speak on, I saw religious freedom. And I was wondering whether it's because my name is Freedom that I was included in the panel. You know, so it was a bit of a challenge for me. But I think that I have to approach this issue both from the conceptual perspective and then discuss what is happening. My understanding as a researcher and as well as what I see around. You know, most times when I run into persons, they ask me, you said your name is Freedom, what do you mean? I said it's the license to talk nonsense and do anything I want to do. So, and I think it's better we appreciate religious freedom from this point of view. Once it is the license for me to do whatever I want to do, and I to do whatever I want to do and whatever I want to say. So it is at this point of the contradiction that I approach religious freedom, which is the fact that you live to exist, that there is diversity. That's the first thing. Second, to recognize that you must respect that diversity. Because once you recognize that diversity, then your own existence is guaranteed. When you fail to recognize those diversity, thinking that your own existence is spill over other persons, then you run into contradiction. And this other contradiction that raises the question of whether we are having religious tolerance or intolerance. So that there's always a loose understanding of right. It takes an educated environment or society to appreciate right. Yeah, I think Haji also raised that question that we need to be in a position where we can appreciate the challenge. So in the context of Nigeria, we must recognize there is diversity, whether we like it or not. We have all accepted that we answer Nigeria. That's the oneness in it. But there's diversity, which is the fact that that diversity could be in different identity markers. It could be in the form of tradition. It could be in the form of religion, as we have now. It could be in the form of ethnicity. It could be in the form of tribe. It could even be in the form of gender. But the point is that we all recognize that we're entitled to a right. And that entitlement to a right also circumscribes our own enjoyment of that right. And that's where a power comes in, and that's why I'm much more interested in it. To what extent can we enjoy this right within the context of an institution we have given powers to circumscribe people's access to right? And it gives you a sense of why you are suffering what you may call religious persecution. Because somebody have already arrogated to him or herself the right to decide who's supposed to enjoy his or her own right. And that's where the danger lies in. And that's where you ask the question about the capacity of the state to clearly delimit what is your own right and who the next person's right. And once you fail to enjoy that right, I think the question comes in about what is the Nigerian state existing for? It has failed to do two things. First, to provide the basis for people to appreciate their right, which is education. And I'm happy the last panel raised it. Once you get an educated population, what is right. And then when they cannot interpret what is right, they rely on their ideologues to frame it in such a way that it perpetuates their power and influence. And that's exactly what we are seeing in Nigeria. I keep on telling people, I don't really think that the problem we have in northern Nigeria really is about religious crisis. It only takes a religious coloration after the manifestation of the problem. And why does it persist in northern Nigeria? And as well, it persists somewhere because we have seen reprisal attacks, for example, when we had a problem of the beauty pageant. It persists because once a right is transgressed, once a right is violated, people wait to see the response of that state they've given the right to redress it. Once that state fails to do that, then you see the consequences of the reprisal attack. Beyond that also is that it creates impunity. So you then see that someone who thinks that he has succeeded in circumscribing his right will continue to do so for others, even at flimsy reasons. So this is where my own point of view comes in, which is how do I preach and approach religious freedom? First, I look at it from the perspective of oneness. Wherever we are coming from, we are all from one human race. So that's the first thing I take. Second one I teach my students, because I teach a lot of security issues, is to ask them the question, where do you know you are coming from before you came to the earth? So many of them say they don't know. Then I also tell them that it is very likely also you don't even know where you are going to. So the first thing to do is to recognize there is diversity, respect that diversity, and appreciate and enjoy that diversity. In the end, it enables you to even appreciate your own rights, enjoy your own rights, and also become a fulfilled person. So from that perspective, that's how I approach it. I don't know whether there's a concept called liberal Christian, but I call myself liberal Christian. My father attended different church. Maybe that's what influenced me. My mother also was attending different church. But like you said, Lola, once there's festivity, there's this hunger in this country. Once there's festivity, then my mother will always like to go the one my father is attending. Or my father will go his own. So I was raised in that kind of context, okay? And then when I was to marry, I was actually not so much committed to religion, but my wife is a Catholic. I know people were saying, where will you marry? I said, anywhere she's going, I am going. I'm even looking for where it is cheaper, and they say it's Catholic, it's cheaper. Then I went there and wedded. Because, the reality is that nothing makes me superior over my wife. I say this with every sense of humility. And nothing makes her superior over me because she's a Catholic. I think the most important thing is the value that she brings to my life and the value I bring to her life, to the extent that the religion permits that. So for me, that is religious freedom. But I would let me round off to say that you can only talk about this freedom in the context of right. And you can only appreciate this right in the context of empowerment, which education confers. And you can also appreciate it when there's an institution that regulates or also sanctions somebody who circumscribes their own rights as much as when you circumscribe other people's rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before you go, let me just add just a little bit of context when he's mentioning the rights and the institutions we empower. So the Constitution of the country, Article 38, freedom of religion, speaks about every person shall be entitled to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, including freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others, or in public and in private, to manifest and propagate his religion or believe in worship, teaching, practice, etc., etc. So no person attending any place of education shall be required to receive religious instruction or take part in any religious ceremony or observance, if such instruction, contradicts their own, etc., without the support of the parents and guardian. So these rules are already there, and we have these things that we have set out to protect ourselves from the tyranny of a majority of people believing in a certain way. And it seems like a natural thing to think about, that in a place where you have people believing different things, you want institutions to be able to say, you're free to believe whatever you want, but you can't force that on anybody else without their permission. So where did we go wrong, and what has happened as a result of past violations of these conventions? Or any other thing you want to talk about?
I thought the question was my own understanding of religious freedom. Well, to begin with, Lola, I've been addressed as Professor Abubakar Othman over and over. In the university, we are careful about titles. I am not a professor.
Doctor, then.
All right? Yes. Yeah. So please talk, because the women who are protesting yesterday, I'm not Miss, I'm Mrs. So I'm doctor, I'm not a professor. One. Secondly, honestly, I was caught unawares. I don't know how I found myself on this panel, because there are certain areas that I have already made up my mind about them, that I would not want to even discuss them, because I'm not going to waver from that. And one of these areas is religion, and my religion is Islam. I'm very conservative about it, unchangeable, and I don't play to the gallery, right? Yes. And now that we are discussing this topic of religious freedom, you may find it in the Constitution, stated and defined, but the Constitution is defective. It's man-made. So I find the topic religious freedom in itself an oxymoron. Right? It's a contradiction in terms. Right? Yeah, it is a contradiction in the sense that religion, you have to differentiate between religion and belief. Right? Religion is prescriptive. Religion is regulated. Religion has its own code of laws that are unalterable. Right? Therefore, to talk about freedom within that is a contradiction. What are you changing? Are you changing the Quran or the Bible? Right? Which one are you changing? All right? You did not write the Quran. You cannot change it. All right? So you don't talk about freedom in a system where you have willingly put yourself in it. You have to abide by all these laws, all these regulations. Yes, there's no contradiction about it. However, you may talk about religious machination or religious manipulation, right? For some reasons, okay? And that is where the point of the issue of education comes in, right? You cannot interpret the Quran beyond the text of the Quran. How are you going to interpret it? Of course, we are conscious of time and space, all right? But that time you are discussing, you are referring to, the space you are referring to, the future you are referring to, you think the author of the book was not conscious of that? You know, he was at the beginning, he is now, he is forever. He must have foreseen the future, all right?
If I may...
No. What are you going to interpret? The knowledge, excuse me, please. I've told you earlier on that I'm not going to play with the gallery, all right? The knowledge that you are going to apply to interpret the Quran, where did you get the knowledge from? It's the same knowledge that the same God gave you through the same book. You may be carried out by modern, global, fads and all these isms, including feminism, all right? Which actually existed, I'm saying that you can play with them. That is where the knowledge comes in. Listen, you can play with them. That is where the knowledge comes in. But you cannot change it from yourself being a woman. All right? You can play with religion the way you want, but you cannot change it from it being Islam or Christianity or Judaism. All right? You can be an atheist. But how do you define an atheist? An atheist is someone who has nobody to say thank to when he is in the moment of glory. Nobody to be thankful to. If you're an atheist, you don't believe in the existence of a deity who is responsible for what is happening to you. If suddenly you run into a lake, what do you say? Who do you thank? You thank myself? So you can see that there's nothing, actually, atheist is something non-existent, all right? It's part of the thinking of human beings and so forth.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you, but okay. I want to have a short follow-up. I'll give you a chance to respond. But what I understand, it seems there's very little confusion about the definition of religious freedom. So what I'm going to say is give you a little analogy. So assume that you're a Muslim, you practice your religion in Nigeria freely, without any obstacle. So imagine you find yourself in a majority Christian or atheistic or whatever religion, like in the USA or Sweden or anywhere else. Religious freedom, the principle itself is the freedom that you have and everybody else has in that country to practice your religion without any obstruction, without any kind of restriction on it. So what we are saying is, can we have that kind of freedom in this country where you as a Muslim can practice your religion, a Christian can practice his religion, somebody who doesn't believe in any religion can still practice without any agency of state.
Existing, hold on, hold on, please. You may say no. It depends on what type of religion you practice. I have not, where I come from, all right? I think environment matters. Where I come from, all right, in my village, I have never seen a day when somebody stood on the way and said, look, you can't go to the mosque. Or somebody stood on the way and said, no, you can't go to the church, stopping you from going there. We practice our religion freely. Unless we want to attach some encumbrances, all right, towards this religion, trying to put a lot of appendages to it so that you will have something to talk about, to intellectualize about it. But religious freedom, in terms of the way you explain it, the right to practice your religion, the way it is stipulated.
Or to not practice it. Is that guaranteed?
No, that is to say that you don't have religion, isn't it? No, you don't say the right not to practice. It's not a question, all right? If you have a religion, you have to practice it, all right?
But do you have the right to decide not to have a religion in Nigeria? Is that guaranteed in your belief?
No, that is one, is there, of course, a guarantee. In fact, in Islam, what it says, I have my religion, you have your religion, all right? You keep your religion, I keep my religion.
And if I don't have a religion, am I free to
If you don't have your religion, live the way you want to live, like an animal. Simple. Yes, period.
Okay. So hold, I understand.
Because, sorry, please. I said so.
He has a freedom of speech. Please let him speak.
Listen.
He should speak.
Please listen, audience, all right?
Excuse me, let him speak, please.
I said so because religion is a regulatory factor that everybody needs it, all right? So that it will tell you that, I don't know how much history of the Greeks you know. Let me give you an analogy. Let him speak, all right? Please. Let me give you an analogy with the Greek cosmology. In fact, even the Yoruba cosmology, all right? In the Greek cosmology, every aspect of life has a god attached to it. God of beauty, God of ugliness, God of death, God of life, God of women, God of men, God, everything. The same thing with the Igbos. They have their Ikengas, they have their, grand god and all the same thing with. The reason for this plethora of deities in the Greek cosmology, because if you go to Greece, if you go to the temple of Apollo, what is written on the gate is what? Know thyself and nothing in excess. That is what is written, right? At the entrance of the temple of Apollo in Greece, if you've been there. Know thyself, nothing in excess. And that is the guiding principle of the Greek civilization. By that they mean, and that is how we got the classical civilization, which is transcendental. By that they mean, know yourself as a human being, as a center of perfection, and that whatever you want to be, you can be. Whatever you want to attain, you can attain. But don't forget that there is a seal, a glass ceiling over you. Nothing in excess. This nothing in excess regulates your own way of pursuing this potential so that you don't step on other people's toe. You find this practicalized in Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. If you know the story of Okonkwo, an active, vibrant man, but whose father was an, F-level, all right? A worthless man who died without clearing even a footpath to be called his own. Such a person in Igbo land does not deserve a grave when he dies. So when he died, he was thrown out into the evil forest. Okonkwo wanted to run away from the faith of his father, so he overworked himself, all right? At a tender age, he was the greatest farmer. Blah, blah. You know the story. I need not tell you. Let me tell you the summary of it. Oh, yeah. But because of his excessive fear of failure and passion for success, he overstepped social and cultural boundaries. He beats his wife during the week of peace. He kills an elderly man or somebody. I think they are mourning the death of one elderly man, and he kills somebody there, which is also another sacrilege. A sacrilege upon sacrilege. Even when the art goddess Annie approached him and said, look, what you have done is against the laws of the land, go and repent. He repented inwardly. He refused to show it on his face. And the society was complaining, oh, this man committed sacrilege, and he's not repentant. But he was inwardly repentant. At the end of the day, what is it? He ended up like his father, right? He was banished in the first place. By the time he comes back, he returned to the village, it was no longer there, and blah, 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 blah. This is what religion does. Religion regulates your behavior so that you don't become animalistic. Religion regulates your behavior, so that you can become rational, work in tandem with the general goods of society without endangering society. So I look at someone who has no religion as dangerous to society. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's good we have diversity of thought on the panel. I'm going to go back to Bala. And the reason I'm going back to him is because, like I said earlier, he has a first-hand experience of what can happen when there's intolerance in an environment, and when the rights, individual rights, granted not by the state, but by the creator of each individual, to be free to believe in whatever it is they believe, is infringed upon, just because he's deciding by himself to either to live a religion or to believe in whatever else he wants to believe, or if he doesn't want to believe at all. So I want him to give us, for those who don't know his story, exactly what happened and how you've experienced this kind of religious freedom that Professor Othman said exists in Nigeria. So, Doctor, I'm sorry.
So he actually has been speaking his mind. He doesn't understand where we are coming from, being an atheist. Biologically, we are all animals, sir.
That is true.
But we are also responsible citizens. I have a job. I plan to have a family. And I respect my culture, which is somehow intertwined with the religion. And not having a religion doesn't mean I don't have morality. I am very moral, and I live with Muslims. How do you think, as an atheist, I'm alive in the north, if I'm living wayward or maybe immoral. I eat with Muslims, I sleep with Muslims, my colleagues are Muslims, and Christians as well. And there has never been an issue pertaining religion between myself and them. And even my family, even after the incidents, I went back 2 weeks later, I went into Kano.
You should tell us about the incident.
Oh, yes. I have been an atheist for quite a while in my university years. I was actually a very, very, he reminded me of my father. So the society generally is conservative in Kano. And I grew up, I attended an all-Muslim primary school, all-Muslim secondary school, only Muslims exclusive. So I had virtually no contact with other cultures and other religions. And I was supposed to attend a university in Malaysia called International Islamic University in Malaysia. I started Bayero University, Kano, but the suffocation I experienced as a teenager was too much because of the sort of conservativeness in our elders. So I opted to leave Kano. I wanted to leave Kano for the first time. Although I've been leaving Kano for only excursions about religious excursions. It's called Muslim Student Society of Nigeria Excursions, IVC, every December since age 10. And my primary school, they used to teach us about jihad. And we actually practiced some fighting skills, shooting arrows. They wanted to even bring horses because they always tell us that when the jihad comes, you have to learn how to ride horses. This is a Saudi-sponsored primary school in Kano. It still exists. And so after all these things, and I opted to leave Kano, my father was disappointed. He said I wanted to leave him because I wanted to maybe become a bad person. I knew I don't want to become a bad person, but I don't want to be suffocated with all the culture. The dictation is that I have to wear a hat, as you see is already imprinted in me. You have to, not necessarily at home, but your teachers will also dictate how you dress. We are not supposed to tuck in that it's a Western culture. We're not supposed to do that. I have to recite a prayer when I enter the toilet, when I sleep, when I wake up, before I eat, after I eat, this and that. It's always definitions of how you should be. So I felt I am just not being myself. And the good thing about these schools that we are always attending is that there is also science attached to it. And we are supposed to reconcile ourselves with the religious teachings and the science. And I understood both. So I always find contradictions, and I always try to reason. And if I complain to the teachers, sometimes they'd say, this is blasphemy, you're not supposed to ask that. And if the questions persist, you could even be punished. So first time I experienced a general Nigerian society is when I attended SBRS, that's School of Basics and Remedial Studies in Funtua. I met Christians, and immediately it clicked. I became friends with a lot of them, and we discussed a lot. Then I realized that I don't need to be that conservative. I want to be liberal. I want to just liberate myself. But I was still a practicing Muslim. Gradually, as we graduated into ABU's area, it was a remedial studies. In ABU's area, that was around 2005, 2006, the MSS, because there was a precondition before my dad allowed me to go to ABU's area, leave Kano, that I had to belong to the MSS, Muslim Student Society Organization, and that I have to abide by all the rules that I know at home. I have to greet him every Friday, which is cool, and a lot of things. So when I was in ABU, the MSS hoisted a candidate for the SUG election, Student Union Government, 2006. But another candidate won, a Christian. Then it became a tension that the candidate for the Muslims had to just rule by proxy. So the MSS Amir, the leader of the MSS, decided, these are people I knew from childhood. The fanaticism was there, so they just wanted to hoist almost an Islamic state in Abu's area, to a point that a lady was crying. You could call her a fanatic. She was asking the Amir to give her permission to behead a Christian student. Yes, this was in 2006, Ribadu Hostel Mosque. So the school had to be shut down for months. So from being liberal now, I realized there is a problem with my society. So I decided maybe I'm a secular person. I felt more comfortable with being secular. So already there are tensions, a lot of tensions. For example, if you are walking the walkways in ABU, I was in the habit of giving people way, and a friend would remind me that you're the Muslim, you're not supposed to allow them the way. They are the Christians, they are supposed to wait until we pass.
Wow.
This is a federal institution, yes. So all the... So...
Sorry, please, let him talk.
So I asked somebody to send to me of Nigeria, and this is the anthem. I pledge to Islam, my religion, to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Islam. It's almost a replica of the Nigerian anthem. Yeah, so to serve Islam with all my power, and I pray Allah for assistance. I have promised to be a Muslim. I have promised to work for Islam. I have promised to serve Islam so I may get eternal bliss. We want the Quran as constitution. We want the Quran as constitution. We want the Quran as constitution. We will not accept the theories. Human theories are barbaristic. Human theories are barbaristic. Human theories are aimless theories. We will no more accept the theories. Oh, brother, the jihad is coming. Oh, brother, the jihad is coming. Oh, you sister, the jihad is coming. We will no more accept the theories. So this is a registered organization in Nigeria, Muslim Student Society. And it's also calling for the superiority of a doctrine practiced by a section of Nigerians over the constitution. Almost like what the Islamic State, the Boko Haram, what they want. So it's almost like a cognitive dissonance to say that as Nigerian authorities, you're trying to say you're fighting Boko Haram and you're not even paying attention. There was an attempt by the Kaduna State Government to regulate preaching and all those things, but they rejected it. I was disappointed because it was even the Christians that were at the forefront to reject the regulation. It was in their favor. I always thought it was almost in their favor because the killings, right now there is a curfew in Kaduna along maybe 5 kilometers away from here. There was a religious fighting, few people died. This is like, so you just see these confusions. And
so you left the religion. I want you to move to what happened afterwards.
Okay. From being secular, I felt very, very, very free. Then I thought, okay, let me just reconcile myself. Let me discover myself. I had a book. I always plot a graph because I'm a science student. I plotted a graph mostly taking daily to see how I improved with my religion. I wanted to be religious, but I want to be secular as well because I always tried to reconcile both because I believed totally. I relocated. I left the friends that are always influencing me in a bad way, in a religious way, but I felt it was a bad way, intolerance and all. I had a house close to the VC's house in ABU. It's a private area. Then when I was there, 2006, 7, 8, I realized that I don't pray by myself. I don't actually bother about religion. Then I realized I don't actually bother much about these things. Only do that when I see the faces looking at me, when I'm at home or when I'm with friends. Then I started questioning whether I believe. Then I said, okay, let me revise whatever they taught me. As an adult now, then I went back. I started rereading because you studied it only as a child and you crammed it. You don't bother about the meanings. As I went through, then I realized I don't believe these things. By 2009, I was sure that I am not a Muslim. But I feared that these are consequences. I can never marry my girlfriend. It would be life-threatening. Mm-hmm. So 2009, up until 2011-12, I was supposed to be in the UK for my master's degree, which was the norm in the house. I was always managing myself not to be discovered because I know freedom is coming along. If I'm free, I can be free forever. But then Boko Haram came about. So I decided to tell just a few, the closest I trusted, that I would tell them that these people are really, really trying to reestablish the Islamic State. But because I understand the religion, or the version of the religion taught to me by my Wahhabi scholars, I realized this is the religion. Right now, there are Sufis practicing their religion normal. They don't have that agenda. They don't want to uproot the constitution. There are other sects of Islam that are moderate, which I discovered only later. But the strict Wahhabi religion that the Saudis sponsored into Nigeria is the one that is actually the dangerous form that is giving birth to all the ISIS, all the Boko Haram, Afghanistan, Somalia. So I decided, okay, I would tell my mom, but only my mom. Then I told my mom, she understood, she said she doesn't care as long as I'm a good person. Then I told a few friends, they thought, no, you can't say that. If I give them evidence, they say, no, the evidence I always carried about is that, why do I have to kill the gecko? The gecko lizard is a hadith that I'm supposed to kill a gecko. And I thought it's very obvious. I could actually tell people that this is wrong. You are telling me to kill a gecko for 100 reward, but you told me the gecko actually spoke in ancient times and connived with human beings to ignite a fire to kill Abraham, the prophet of the three religions. I thought this is injustice to the gecko. If there was a gecko that did that, what happened? And 5,000 years later, to this gecko here in Kano, that I had to kill it for 100 reward. So the argument always goes on, and they would say, you don't question these things. Then I said, okay, let me see if I can reason with what Boko Haram is saying back in the beginning. I would tell people that, okay, they want this, they want that, and we know this is what they want. How do you think? Don't you think this is the religion we were taught? Then people will say, just fear God and keep quiet, everything will be okay.
Sorry, I'm going to stop you a little bit. They are telling me time is getting close. So I just wanted to tell me what happened to you specifically in a very short time. What did people do? How was the reaction? And how did your life get threatened after everybody knew that you were an atheist?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The psychiatric hospital part.
Okay.
You can make it really, really short.
Okay. My mother told my dad that this is what I told her. So he asked me, he said, your mother told me something very, very scary, very, very terrible. If it's true what you are saying, you know you need to see a psychiatric doctor. I just smiled. I thought he wouldn't take it serious. Then it materialized a year later, almost a year later, after a few control measures to see if I could change, and I didn't. Then I was appointed to a doctor, and the doctor said it was perfectly okay to not be religious.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the doctor. He's a Russian. He studied in Russia. And then another doctor, my dad decided to have a second opinion. But this doctor sounded almost like a doctor here. He said I needed a God, and I need religion to be good. And I can't. He said I was denying history because I said I don't believe there was Adam and Eve. I believe the theory of evolution. I believe the scientific explanations about all these things. They said it's delusion, that is psychosis. I was taken, I was bundled up, I was beaten up, I was just taken. I woke up in a hospital a few days later, and I was being drugged among psychiatric patients. Mm-hmm. I wanted to fight it because I woke up and I was very angry. I wanted to fight it, but then I realized I was almost behaving like the patients. Yeah. Then I stopped resisting the drugs. I tried to just mingle my way. I convinced my mom that she put me in the trouble. She should actually get me out. Mm-hmm. And how she could get me out is giving me my phone. I know how to contact people. But I didn't know any rights organization that could assist because I was afraid everybody was conservative as the doctor here. Then I contacted foreign agencies. This is the story.
All right, thank you so much. So first I must protest. This panel is too short. So we have so much to talk about, but Okay. The second is, okay, so you had to go through all of this because apparently in other places, Nigeria is even a little bit tolerant. To use that word tolerant in this kind of a situation, in some places you would be killed for the idea that you are even having, the presence of mind to decide for yourself, that you're not, you don't want to believe in a religion. So I'm going to ask Freedom for this last question before the audience can join in. And what I want you to help me with is the idea that we look at ourselves now in 2018 and assume that we have always been like this, which is not the case. Before we had foreign religions from Saudi Arabia, from colonial times, missionaries, we had religious plurality. People believed in it. People shared. People had neighbors who believed in different things. Believed in Obatala, believed in Ogun and whatever, and everybody shared. And there was no problem with the belief. There were other things to quibble about. So how did we get this bad, where just believing different things or choosing not to believe at all could lead you to this kind of outcome? And how can we change that situation?
Well, I don't think I'm in a position to speak well against the background of his experience, because I didn't grow up in conservative north, as he has put it. Yeah. Like I told you, my own immediate environment was such that it's so liberal. Well, I think I need to come from a more scholarly perspective. Yeah. I may be wrong.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes. Well, I think the whole problem is the politicization of religion. And the benefit it confers those who are the higher position. And people don't tend to understand this. The previous panel were talking about the elites and the class of the elite. And I believe fantastically in what he has just said. I think we are seeing the congealing of the elite, the political elite, the military elite, and the religious elite. And if you go back, maybe in terms of the politics that's going on in this country, you will see that even some religious elites are beginning to fund the political elites. We are not taking closer look at the consequence. Therefore, whatever the political elite wants, he gives the religious elite. Whatever the religious elite wants, he gets the political elite to do it. So the consequence, therefore, is that a very few persons begin to determine what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And for the political elites to maintain their power, and I think that's what is happening in northern Nigeria, they tend to connect closely with the religious leaders and tend to make sure that they reinforce that kind of preaching that only accommodates subservience. I am not preaching that somebody has to be antagonistic to the religion, but I'm also talking about the question to liberate the mind so that you can ask some critical questions that also give you access to your own right. I think that's where the problem lies in. How are we going to break down this barrier? 1 minute. I think a whole lot is going on in Nigeria, but people don't see it. Why the lot is going on in Nigeria? And I'm sorry to say it, not because of northern Nigeria, but also in southern Nigeria. Any day I wake up, I weep in the class. My students will tell you. What we saw in IPOB is a manifestation of something that is also going to happen in the northern Nigeria. As a large number of persons begin to lose access to livelihood, they look for security. And when the state cannot provide that security, they look for a supernatural being to provide that security. And once people arrogate to themselves the powers that they have connected to the supernatural being and can speak to you, then people then follow them, sheepishly. So, I used to tell people that, incidentally, Nnamdi Kanu is my very good brother because we are from Onuoha. But you see, whatever he say, I will sit down and interpret it and interpret it and interpret it and interpret it before I make my conclusion on that, even though he's an Igbo person and he's marginalized. But you see, when you are not empowered to the level where I've also been empowered with exposure, these persons who have come to become ideologues tend to tell you that they hear from God. And you see, the question of transcendentality is that you can't even question the God. You don't see the God. But incidentally, this is also a person have claimed that he speaks from God. So that takes away rationality, and that brings about dependence. And that's where the problem lies in. And that's where the manipulation leads to the crisis we are having. It's not about the Boko Haram. It's everywhere in the world. Once you see some certain ideologues that are against to themselves the power and the superiority of understanding religious text and telling you how it has to be, of course, they can lead you to hell. Me, I don't know whether there is hell or heaven. But the question, therefore, is that we need to begin to put a particular barrier so that with the interpretation of it, The interpretation of it must be such that guarantees the diversity we have in this country and also our access to our rights. That's where I am, but let me end quickly on that. I think I'm also very happy that he raised this issue of the Kaduna religious bill. You know, I was wondering why we were quick to throw it away. I'm sorry to say this. I was wondering why they were quick to antagonize the bill. Rather than sitting down and asking critical questions, where are the areas that really do not tally with the reality? And where are the areas that could even guarantee our coexistence? That is very important. Because you see, people don't understand this thing. Your own right stops where my own starts. Yes. Yeah, I'm going to Lagos and somebody blocks the way because he's preaching. I'm also a Christian. But I need to go and get my visa interview. If you block the road, then you're actually compromising my rights. So it's as simple as that. So by blocking the road doesn't mean that I don't recognize that it's God. I'm only saying that, look, if we don't take it very careful, then there's a problem. The last one, because we don't have time. There is always, see, but that's the danger. There's always the tendency for people to think that once the word regulation comes in, that is wrong. But it's actually it's regulation that preserves our existence. I was lucky to visit Morocco last month for a program sponsored by the United States. Of course, I'm not a scholar in Islam, and I don't profess to say anything about Islam. But what strikes me so much about the Moroccan experience in terms of the practice of Islam is that they have 3 critical bodies that regulate the preaching of Islam. If you've gone to Morocco, find out this. The first one is the Higher Islam Council, headed by the King of Morocco. The second one is the Minister of Endowment. And the third one is what they call the Mohammedia League of Ulama. These are people who also are our brothers and sisters who sit down to consistently look at the text, see how it confirms with their reality and with their challenges, and then try to make sure that everybody follows along without necessarily compromising other person's strands of Islam and the rest of them. I don't think that it makes us better than Moroccans. I only think that it preserves people's right, recognizes that your own right starts and stops when the next person's own right starts.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to... They will have 2 questions here. You can add your comments to this question.
No, let me just chip in something. They have 2. I think the argument is not balanced.
So we're going to have 1 minute comment from him.
I was arguing with him that the argument is not balanced and that as if this panel is premeditated. All right? One, listen, in the first place, I just came in and noticed that I'm on this panel. Secondly, I didn't know that there was an agenda on ground, all right? Honestly, all right?
Sir, the only agenda is conversation.
Sorry, please. Sorry, let us be democratic, please, all right? We all have our reasons for speaking, all right? I studied literary psychoanalysis. All right, as I'm good as any clinical psychologist, all right? By looking at your faces, I will tell you what you are thinking, all right? So by so by hearing you, I will tell you this. So let's leave that aside. Please let's get this. I never thought that it was going to be personal, all right? I thought it was going to be an impersonal panel on an impersonal topic. I sincerely apologize. I must have hurt you, all right? I didn't know that you were coming from that personal angle, all right? Yes. So when I use words, I use them impersonally, please. No hard feelings, all right? And I'm sure, thank you. Thank you. I like what the women are doing. They're responsible for all our problems in this world, Yes. So please, now that we are relaxed, all right? We are all on the same page. I want to tell you that all what I was saying is that religion is actually a prescribed, circumscribed, all right, regulated way of living. It's either you are in or out, all right? So, please, if you are in, play by the rules, all right? If you are out, I never thought that it was going to be the horrifying experience of an individual who wanted to think on his own. I think the problem is actually with your parents, with the type of school you went to, and right, and then the type of education given to you. All right? Yes. So, but he earned my respect. All right, listen, please. He actually earned my respect when in the course of his narration, he said that he himself realized later that it was actually not what he thought, not what he saw, all right? There's no religion more democratic than the Islamic religion and more inclusive. It includes everything, if only you care to look at. But let's come down to the issue of freedom. If you are current, you know the issue of sex scandal in the Vatican, all right? It is the current issue now. When in the state of Wisconsin, when they established their own, court to investigate that matter, it reached a point where the papacy says that, no, we have an oath of secrecy, this one we will not divulge it, and nobody can regulate over it. What is Rome in Italy? You are just a state in a nation, all right? You are establishing your own laws and bylaws, all right, in the papacy, and you are saying that you are not subjected to state laws. So there's a conflict here, isn't it? It's like a subset within a universal set, all right? How would you think if it were the case in Nigeria? Say, okay, we are in Kaduna, we are in northern Nigeria, we will live by Sharia law, and will not live by the constitution. Will it go well? No. That is what is going on in Rome, in Italy, all right? So wherever you are, you have to be mindful that your law exists within a universal law, all right, at that level, all right? So, yeah, can I talk here? Yeah. So please, all I'm saying is that let us understand the religion we are practicing, all right? Any slight ignorance in religion can make you have a misconception of that religion, and that misconception can bring danger to society. That is what I'm saying, all right?
Thank you so much. Thank you for the clarification. From Islam to non-Islamic belief is an issue I was going to mention is the law students that had a hijab on and was prevented from graduating because she had a hijab on. And I thought her religious freedom was also violated by the state or by the people who ran the place. So there's a number of things we have to consider, and I think being open-minded enough to understand that our complexity, our unity in Nigeria is threatened by our insensitivity to the complexity of beliefs and values we hold is a big issue. So thank you very much. We're going to have questions first from Ms. Erufai. She's in front of me, and she's right there. And she's the first lady, so,
Thank you, everybody.
Let her ask questions, and I'll call you.
Yes, first I would like to say that I really appreciate the clarification from Dr. Abubakar Othman, because, yes, thank you very much. Well, this panel discussion, the title is Live and Let Live, Religious Freedom in Northern Nigeria. The part that interests me is the live and let live part. We're talking about tolerance. I respect Mubarak Bala's decision to be who he wants to be. He has a right to not believe in God. I don't think we should take that people's rights. So I was just, Lola just showed me somebody that did a write-up on Facebook, and I was going through the comments. Sorry, I don't know much about you. Of course, I've heard that somebody like you existed. It's very unusual. Yeah, so as I was reading the comments, some people were claiming the religion, you abuse God. That's why I want to say that you have the right to be who you want to be. But I think we should all respect each other's choices. We must never insult anybody's religion, whether it's your former religion or a religion that you've never been a member of. So I want you to give us some clarification. It's all right, you have the right to not be a Muslim, okay? But I don't think you have the right then to become an abuser of the religion. I'm not saying that's what you do, I'm just concluding from the comments. So I'd like you to say something about that.
Well, thank you. There's this...
You have 1 minute.
Okay. Criticism. I am a critic of religion. People take it as an insult. But I don't see it as an insult or blasphemy. If, for example, I want to be a feminist and I'm trying to bring out the problems female ladies and children have in northern Nigeria, there are issues that we're discussing, anybody can discuss anything, but the moment you come to the area where the religion mentions something that is untouchable to the society, and we are also trying to say we are solving this problem, then I would ask, why can't I discuss this? If, for example, let me come to a personal level, then I'll go to the feminist angle. If, for example, there is not to discuss, because it's also personal to me, then coming to the angle about feminists, we bring out the things, the texts that people really don't want to discuss. And we are hearing people telling us the figures and the statistics in northern Nigeria. And one of the issues they don't want to discuss, nobody thinks it's okay to discuss, is religion. And we have to bring out these kind of texts so that people can analyze it and especially propose solutions to these problems. People see it as blasphemy. To me, if you say, for example, let's say you mention something like we came from Adam and Eve, to me is a blasphemy, and it hurts my feelings. But I don't have the population to come around and start telling you that you have hurt my feelings. I am alone in a vastly religious society, I understand. But also, there is also another thing. There are people on my Facebook that are actually Boko Haram members. And I'm quoting some of these things so that they understand. They actually discuss these things. And they put it out there. The authorities, we've called attention of all these authorities to see that these are accounts. You would see their activities. They would even make a list. I saw many lists that I should die. I'm among the list. And so they would quote these texts and say, this is the text, this is the other text, this is the other text, even this, even that, say this, say that, and this is the verse, and this is the hadith. Therefore, somebody should do this action. Then you'd see Muslims are trying to defend the religion instead of defending me, the human. I am a living person, but you're trying to defend a text. So there is always this problem where people think that by just pushing away the problem, we are solving it. We are not. We have to bring it out and discuss it. So if I bring something out and I discuss it, and you feel hurt, you have options. You can unfriend me, you can block me, you can decide not to hear about these things, but I'm not insulting Muslims. I'm not insulting, I live with Muslims. I always emphasize this. They gave me a job, a Muslim gave me a job. I lived in his house for a time, and they protected me a lot, even when I was bullied on the job. Some people thought they could hijack the system and bully me. So I respect human beings, I respect people, I respect everybody and their rights. But when a text tries to, incite people against me, then I'm threatened. Then if I can't even discuss this, then we are not being fair to the minorities in the society, which is why I'm advocating for all these things. But if they feel hurt that this is what I'm doing, they can actually just unfriend me. They don't need to follow it.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to call it you in the back. Make it fast, fast, please, and tell us
very quickly, let me start with quoting
Go to the question, because we don't have
enough
before
time. Then, actually, he says that little science knowledge makes you an atheist, and deep science knowledge makes you a true believer in God. Well, actually, it's very astonishing that you said you study a lot about science, and you haven't seen some significant things that exist. For example, now you can't say, for example, this cap, it's been made by a human being, for example, and you show yourself and say that you came from nowhere, for example.
Go to the
now,
question. Go to the
how
question.
would we say, for example, that the whole universe exists without cause, for example?
Is that the question? Go to the question because of time, sorry.
Yes, I'm coming to that. And I have a lot of questions, actually.
Can you put it in one sentence?
Excuse me, please.
Can you put it in one sentence? It's time.
Okay.
It's time.
Excuse me, please. Let me talk then.
I would like you to put it in one sentence, please.
Mubarak talked about gecko. If somebody kills a gecko, he has 100 words. No, somebody kills another, somebody would go to Jannah for that, okay? Nobody tells anybody to kill somebody for nothing. You understand? So something pops from that, actually. And now, I would like you to delineate about the world popping out, okay, into existence without cause, without anything.
All right,
What would
thank
say
you.
about that?
Thank you.
After
Thank you.
that,
Hold on one second. Hold
now,
on one
excuse
second.
me,
Hold on,
excuse me.
hold on, hold on.
If you believe that there's no hereafter.
Hold on. Let me say something, please. This is a passionate topic. I understand that. You're going to have plenty time outside of this event to argue and have conversations. That's I know. Listen, I know. So there is plenty time for that. I want to have questions, and I want them specific. And if you want him to give you long conversation and debate, you can have that outside. I just want a quick questions so that we can get out of here. Okay? So I'm going to have you ask your questions as well. Please go straight to the questions. We're coming there too.
Yeah, just more of clarification, actually.
Okay, make it fast,
Prof, we went to the same school. Doctor, soon to be a prof. Doctor, he was my senior in secondary school. We never thought something like that. That's one. And the gecko thing, at best, fabricated and a weak hadith, is not in Islam. The idea of science, I have a book. I told you that I'm going to give you a book called Atheism Delusion. Completely scientific fact in Quran. Just that. I have a book for you. And then the issue of you are going to be killed. I dare you. Show me in Quran where it says, if you apostate or leave Islam, you should be killed. Let me tell you the whole idea of it. And the jihad of it, what you mentioned about jihad, what is the meaning of jihad? It's not the violence, it's the struggle, right? During the time of the Prophet, during the time of the Prophet and the Sahabas, the jihad was struggle and jihad of expansionism. If you don't expand, the Roman and the Persian Empire, we're going to conquer you. Along the way,
what's the
jihad,
question? Be fast, please. Be fast.
Jihad changed to
We're going to end this program without...
It's an jihad of intellect. It's no longer of you killing me or you killing me, you understand?
Enough.
That's that. And please, for the book, I have a book for you.
Sorry, I know you think I'm just trying to shut you up. I'm not trying to shut you up.
Can I just very quickly say that this panel discussion is not about how we are going to convince Mubarak Bala to become a Muslim. Neither is it about how we are going to convince Dr. Othman to stop believing in Islam. It's not about that.
Please.
It's about religious freedom. Live and let live. If your comment or your question does not align with that topic, please have that conversation outside, because it just results in bullying, which I don't like. People are entitled to their ideas. It's a safe space.
All right. I'm going to have one person on that side. You, yes. Let him, the gentleman in the... Kadri, I'm coming to you, please. Him, the guy in blue. Yes. Make it fast. Please make it fast. Please make it fast. Otherwise, I'll stop calling the men.
Okay, what I want to just say is that...
make it fast, please.
What I just want to say is that I have experienced something like what is... I'm not saying I'm an atheist, but I'm saying that I've had conflict... Okay, I'm coming. I have had conflicting ideas about Christianity, and most times people will say, people just round everything up and say, Christianity accepts this, when we know there are chapters in the Bible that says that suppresses women, and we say, okay, but the Bible says this. So what I'm trying to say is that when people just round up and say that Islam accepts this, I think we are not allowing a conversation here. We are just circumventing the problem.
Thank you very much. Kadria has a question. Kadria has a question. I'm coming to you, I promise. Okay, let her talk. Kadria, I'm sorry. Okay, let her talk, please. No more men. Sorry, we have enough men on this side.
Mubarak, let me just say that I'm sorry you had to go through the things that you went through. I know your family a little bit, so I know what you went through, and I'm sorry you went through that. Given your experience, you know, one has to also look at your foundation, and you went through a strict Wahhabi upbringing. And what is so fascinating about your story is that despite that strict Wahhabi upbringing, you still went back to question things, and now you've reached a conclusion where you're atheist. I wish you the best. Now, given your experience, how do you think we can stop indoctrinating small children? Because you know that anthem you read, I was taught that anthem in Islamia. But I had, you know, parents who encouraged us to find Islam for ourselves. And I find that extremism happens because people just follow what they are told. They don't find Islam for themselves. They don't, yes. And I understand, you know, because you came from somewhere that you were so restricted.
Please go on. Please go on.
So my question is, given your childhood and your experience, how can we as parents ensure that we raise people who will grow up to discover Islam for themselves?
It's a great question. Thank you so much. Don't answer yet. Hold on. Let me get a few questions so you can answer everything. Kadria.
Okay, so my question is for everybody in the room.
Yes.
Particularly those, and it's a question that I don't think they can answer here now. I want them to go away with it and think about it. I want people to ask themselves why they get so angry if someone says, I don't believe what you believe in. Why does it get you so upset? In Islam, it is between us and God. I die alone. I enter my grave alone. And God judges me alone. Now, if you know that and you truly believe that, why are you so angry? Why? Please, ask yourself that question.
Yes. Another woman in the back there. How many more minutes do I have? Just one more question. Sorry, guys. That's the last question. You can continue the conversation outside. I'm sorry about that, but we're already out of time. I'm sorry about it. I'm sorry. Please, what's the question? I'm sorry.
Good afternoon.
Yes, please make it fast.
My question is about religious freedom in the North. Live and let live.
Who is it directed to, please?
It's directed to the professor especially and Mr.
The doctor.
Doctor and
Mr.
Professor. Bala. My question is about how we can realize, as Muslims, we are the majority in the North, and how we can realize when we're infringing on the rights of northern minorities, especially Christians. Because, for example, a man who is born in Sokoto, has been raised in Sokoto, his family for generations have been in Sokoto. If we are being honest, that man cannot come out and contest to be the governor of Sokoto if he isn't Muslim. Many of us would say, no, that's not the case, but we know that society will not vote for him. So how do we, as individuals, change that?
Thank you. So, Professor, you can answer the question, and then he will answer the question.
Sorry, I will answer you to the extent of my knowledge, all right? And I'm not going to be particular about Sokoto. You infringe on the right of a non-Muslim the moment you go beyond the teaching of Islam. If you go outside what Islam has taught you about yourself and your environment, you are infringing on the right of another person. As long as you behave and act within the tenets and the confines of your religion, you will not step on anybody's toes, because your religion has protected that person's rights. About the governorship, about the governor, no, with due apology, Your Excellency, no governor is elected in this country religiously. Listen, please get the language, please. I'm not saying that elected on the basis of religious bias. No, I said religiously. Islam has stipulated how you will elect a leader, all right? In fact, if you come out to say, elect me as a leader, religion, all right? I think our own system of election is based on our own idiosyncrasies, all right? So whether in Sokoto you elect a Muslim or a non-Muslim, whether you prophet them, none of them at the end of the day serve as Muslims. So please remove your political process in Sokoto from the laid-down process of electing a leader in Islam. Thank you.
You have a...
Okay, Zara's question.
1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute. The reform actually, as I understand it, has to come from the parents. Most parents of today do not even have time to teach religion to children, except if you take away the command to just go and pray, go and pray. This is all that it entails. But you also delegate your children to another tutor. The tutors now tell them what they think the religion is. There was an incident in Abuja where children in a house could not sleep at night. It was investigated later to be found out that actually the malam that comes to the house tells them scary stories about the grave, about the afterlife, about this, about that. So it's almost like abuse. So if you want to have control over these things, you are supposed to take parenting away from these because you don't know where they came from. Most of them are just almajiris. They don't know how they perceive life, and you just hand over your children. You trust they are just teaching religion to them. But in essence, your children may even rise and see you as an infidel. You don't know. So, and the fanaticism going about shows that mostly it's not the parents teaching children fanaticism. It's the clerics. And this is why the Religious Freedom Act all over, not just in Kaduna, should be revived and also enacted so that at least the clerics will control what they say.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bala. Thank you, Freedom, and Dr. Othman.
Please, let's give them a big round of applause. Yeah, I just wanted to add something really small, which is that raising my own children, I have 4. My eldest is 22. My youngest is 14. My husband and I decided to do a bit of a social experiment. So we allowed them to have any friends that they liked. If somebody said, they're going to have a party or something at the mosque, and they come home and say, can I go? Fine, go. If the Christian come, we generally don't go to church, but if anybody would come and say they were doing a celebration in church, and they asked us, yes, go. Any religion, we used to allow them to go because we wanted them to experience them all. But I'll tell you something, at the end of the day, what I believe is that if you're training your children, I think one of the best principles on which you should stand is what Mr. Freedom was saying earlier. In all your actions, be mindful of ensuring that you don't inflict pain on the next person. And this exact thing about love, loving the next person, not hurting the next person, ensuring that you don't bring the other person to any harm. You find it in Christianity. You find this same thing in Islam, maybe not in those exact words, but I don't understand why this is so hard for us to just accept. Yes, send your children wherever you want to send them to, but I think with my kids and the way I watch them, their sense of justice, their understanding of the world, I do not regret what I did. I'm not advocating for that, but I'm just saying that this thing we believe that it is only when you indoctrinate your children and scare the hell out of them by telling them they will burn in hell if they lie, if they group photo. Should we take a quick break? And come back and see how we can move Nigeria forward? Huh? Okay. So let's take 10 minutes and come back.